Good morning and a very warm welcome indeed to today's iOB business webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. My name is Ben and I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business. Now, a little bit about how these webinars operate, just so that we can get kicked off for today in the best possible way. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them. You'd be more than welcome to do so, and it's always a pleasure to answer any questions that you might have. Now, what we'll do is we'll answer these questions at the end of today's webinar session during the Q&A segment, which is always a fantastic little segment. We always really enjoy doing it, and it gives everybody a chance to ask these questions, and have them answered. Now, what we'll also do during today's webinar, we're going to go through three core segments. Okay, now in between each of these three core segments, we're going to take a brief pause to give everyone a chance to jot down any notes and indeed ask away with any questions that they might have as well. Although you're more than welcome to ask questions at any time, and we'll answer them during the end of today's webinar session. Okay, so welcome to those of you joining just now. We are just past the 10 o'clock mark, so we'll get kicked off for today's session. Now, I'm going to switch off my video camera, so you won't be able to see my face anymore, but you should still be able to hear my voice. And in just a moment's time, you'll see the presentation that we have up on screen there for you as well. Today, we're going to be talking about the fact that business is a marathon and not a sprint. Okay. It's a fantastic topic of conversation. We're going to talk about how this is a long game and not a quick fix. Okay. When we open a business, when we start a business, when we're building a business, we have to think about the long term. We have to understand that this is not necessarily a quick fix. It's something that we need to cultivate and grow over time, which is a wonderful thing because it's something that's going to take a lot of dedication, a lot of passion, a lot of investment of your time, effort, and energy. Okay, so business is a marathon, not a sprint. Now, if I could just ask a big favor right before we get kicked off for today's session, please, just let me know in the chat box, can you hear my voice okay? And can you see the presentation that we have up on screen there for you okay as well? And once I have confirmation on those two things, I will know that we are ready to rock and ready to get kicked off for today's session. Perfect. Okay, brilliant. Looks like we're good to go. So thank you very much for that. And welcome everyone. Welcome to those of you joining now. Thanks very much to all of you for taking the time to join us on today's session. It's going to be a great one. So once again, my name is Ben. I'm a business coach. I specialize in working with small businesses, just like many of you on here today, to help them achieve stability and growth. It's my passion. It's what I love to do. And it's what I'm fortunate enough to get to do every single day. So let's talk about today's discussion points. Okay, number one, we're going to talk about learning to walk before you run. Number two, we're going to talk about thinking long term. And number three, we're going to talk about avoiding early mistakes. Okay, three very, very important topics of conversation. We're going to spend a good amount of time on each one. Make sure we run through everyone in detail and that everybody has a great grasp of this before we move on to the next one. Okay, so let's get kicked off with topic number one. Learn to walk before you run. Okay, now, what does this mean? All right. Well, many new business owners are incredibly, and rightly so, keen to do it all straight away. Okay. Now, if you've ever found yourself in a startup position, or perhaps you're thinking about starting a business of your own, it is natural to have this feeling of, oh, well, I want to do this and I want to get an office and I want to, hire a team and I want to open a shop and I want to do this and I want to do that. And I want to do it all now. Okay. Now, it's completely understandable and the enthusiasm is fantastic. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it's that spark that we get when we think about starting a business. It's that feeling that you have that you just can't wait to get going. Okay. Now, whilst this is absolutely wonderful, the only thing we need to make sure that we're doing is making sure that we learn to walk before we run. Okay. Now, as I said, many new business owners experience this, and it's a wonderful thing. And you should always welcome that feeling of, I want to get started and I want to do it all. Okay. And you should hold on to that feeling for your entire business journey because it's a very, very, very unique and very, very wonderful thing that comes to business owners, which is fantastic. Okay. But what we have to think about is let's segment this. Okay. Let's do it in stages. And if we want to, we will build to all of those goals that we ourselves have to make sure that we're doing it all in the right way. Okay, so if you want a fantastic, strong, long-term, healthy business with it all, with everything that you want, you have to do it step by step by step. Now, as a business coach, I have seen businesses that have tried to expand too fast. I've seen businesses that have taken on big teams too quickly. I've seen businesses that have opened offices or shop fronts too quickly, bought or leased too many vehicles too quickly. I've seen all of this happen and I've seen businesses collapse and I've seen businesses come up the right way as well. Okay, I've seen businesses grow steady and strong. I've seen businesses grow too fast and ultimately they don't last. And this is what I do not want to happen to anyone on here. Okay. So there are fundamental basics of business that must be learned early in the business that will build strong foundations for your business to flourish long term. Okay. So let's talk about some of the key fundamentals of business. Okay. We have marketing, we have sales, we have operations, we have finance. Okay. Now, these, in my view and in my experience, are the four core pillars of business. Okay. Now, there may be more, and there's always more to discuss in business, but to have a basic understanding of these four principles, in my experience, will keep you in the right direction. Okay. Now, in no particular order, marketing is a basic understanding of how to advertise and get your business out to the world, how to let people know that you are here. Because if nobody knows that you are here, how could anybody buy from you? Okay. Now, there's a reference I always like to use for this. Let's imagine you had a burger stand, okay? And you sold burgers and you sold the best burger that anybody could ever taste in the entire world. But you were nowhere to be found. You were in some random countryside location and nobody knows that you're there. And if people did know that you were there, you might sell the most burgers out of anybody, but nobody knows you're there. So they can't try it, they can't talk about it, they can't taste it, they can't share it with their friend. They can't do any of these things because they don't know that you're there. This is one of the most simple ways to understand the concept of marketing. Okay. You could have the best product in the world, but if you do not market, nobody will know, and therefore nobody will be able to buy. Okay. Sales, the fundamental principle of essentially establishing a desire and a need for your product or your service. Okay. It's our job ultimately as business leaders, as business owners, to show people why they need or want what we have. Okay. Sales is a fundamental skill that you have to begin to learn if you want to be a good business owner, okay, or even one of the best. If you cannot sell what you have, then you will not have a business, okay? Operations. What happens once you sell your product, okay? You've marketed it, you've sold it. What happens when you've sold it, okay? Especially if you are a service-based business owner, which many of you on here are. If your operational department, your operational capacity cannot deliver what has been asked, you're going to again find yourself struggling, okay? And finally, finance. We need to have a basic understanding of cash flow, profit and loss, and how that works, okay? Because if we are spending or losing more than we are making, again, the business is not going to stay afloat. So there are fundamental basics of business that must be learned early in the business, okay? Early in the life of the business that will build strong foundations for your business to flourish long term. Before we start looking at bringing in a team, before we start looking at bringing in offices, shop fronts, any of these things, we have to understand the basic fundamentals of business, okay? Now, we have a full understanding of your chosen niche, okay? If you're a service-based business owner, you have to fully understand the service or the principles of service that you have decided to offer, okay? If you are offering paid advertising or web development or anything like this, you have to have a really, really good understanding of your chosen niche, okay? You have to be able to deliver it well and effectively, market it and sell it, and then establish as well a healthy cash flow from it. You have to have a basic understanding of cash flow management, making sure that the money that is coming in is being well managed and well spent. You have to be able to negotiate with and manage clients well, okay? Because managing clients is a whole skill set of its own, okay? It's something that will keep the business afloat long term if you know how to manage clients, but also negotiate with them. Okay. What do you need? Why do you need it? How can we deliver that for you? And finally, managing a team. Okay. Now, these are just a few of many, many, many examples that we could be using, but you have to be able to manage a team effectively one day if you want the team to work well with you and for you. Okay. So commit yourself to learning these basics of business and you will set yourself up very, very well long term. So that brings us to the end of topic number one, and I'll see you again in just a moment for topic number two. Perfect. So let's move ourselves on to topic number two then for today, where we're going to be talking about thinking long term. Okay. So it's easy to make the mistake of being overly eager early on in your business journey. Okay. Now, what I mean by this is we can be so easily persuaded to do exciting things early on. Okay. We can lease the expensive car. We can hire the big fancy team. We can kit out the office with the best computers and the best desks and all the rest of it. We can open the fancy city center office. Okay. It's really, really easy early on to make these mistakes. Okay. Now, the reason I refer to them as mistakes is because you are opening yourself up to massive liability so early on. Okay. You want to begin to establish a rhythm of what is achievable and when and how you can sustain it. Okay. So, if you were going to take on an office in the city center, okay, first thing we have to ask ourselves is, well, why is it the city center? Is it the fact that it is in the city and it's easy for people to commute to if you're looking to build a team? Or is it because you want to talk about the fact that you have a city center office? Okay. Now, it's very, very important to distinguish the difference between these two. And we can't let what other people think drive our decisions in business. Okay. We have to focus on ourselves and our potential future customers or clients. Okay. Now, this is just one example of an overly eager early mistake. Okay. Now, even if you want something like that for your own benefit and not for others, we have to think to ourselves, is it sustainable? Okay. Uh, is my business bringing in enough sustainable income to support whatever it is I want to do long term? Because ultimately, this is what it always circles back to. It circles back to the finance within the business. Okay. It's easy to make mistakes that can set us up for failure further on. Okay. We could find ourselves locked into a lease for an office that if we lost one client, we could no longer afford. And that's going to be a problem. Okay. We do not want to open ourselves up to this level of vulnerability so early on because it's not going to bode well for our business in the long run. Now, this means that we must take our time with each decision in the early days to ensure that we are making the correct decision for the future success of our business. Okay. We need to be able to establish the difference between I want this and I've earned this. Okay. They are two different things. I want this means it's probably not a good time, but I'm going to do it anyway. I've earned this means, you know what, we put in the groundwork, we deserve it, let's get it done. Okay. They are two different things. So, what we have to ensure is that each decision we make is a good, productive decision for the business long term. And we almost have to sometimes take ourselves and our personal feelings out of it and think, is this what's best for the business? Because if you look at what is best for the business as opposed to what you want, you will find the business hopefully growing sustainably well because you'll be investing in the right places. You'll be giving the business time to cultivate and grow. Okay. You'll be giving the business time to establish what the business needs, and you'll be providing that for the business long term. And then the business will begin to provide for you. Okay. So we don't want to be taking loads and loads of money out of the business early on. We don't want to be spending business funds on things that we can't really afford early on. We've got to be thinking long term, is this a good decision? Is this a good idea for the business? Okay. Now, here's another thing. Okay. This is about business management. Never sell yourself short. Okay. Never. Discounting your services by monetary value in order to win business early on can be harmful in the long term. And this is what, we're talking about when we say we need to always think decision wise, what's going to be best for the business long term. Okay. If we start discounting services to win all this business in, are we making enough profit on those services? Have we got enough sustainability in the business to keep pushing this long term? Okay. Or are we going to find ourselves in a bit of a predicament because we've got lots and lots of clients who are expecting very, very heavily discounted services? Not only have we devalued our product or service, we also now have other people expecting the same thing. And all of a sudden, we can't sell at our actual price or our premium price anymore because we've actually built a reputation for being extremely cheap. Okay. Where it's not sustainable, we can't grow a team, we can't get the office, we can't do any of these things because we're not making big enough margins. Okay. So, in order to win business early on, remain authentic. Okay. Know the value in your product or service and discuss this with people. Okay. Don't ever think of it as a position where you desperately need somebody to buy your product, okay? Because this will become clear in the sales conversation. And whilst this webinar is not fully about sales, it's a very, very important tip to know that if somebody sat on the other side of that computer on FaceTime or video conference, or they're sat at the other side of the desk and you're negotiating, they want the service or product. Otherwise, they wouldn't be sat there. Okay? So you have to remember this. Getting on well in the market and with your clients will assist you in building a healthy reputation. Okay? So, in a nutshell, that is what we are looking at, okay, for thinking long term. Now, getting on well in the market and with your clients will assist you in building a healthy reputation. Okay? Just do what you can, do it well, sell your products at a fair price, but do not discount them by monetary value. And what I mean by this is if you're selling, say, a bundle of 5 products for, let's say, £1,000, if you sell four, then sell them for 800. Or if you want to sell three, you sell them for 600. If somebody asks for money off, take something away. Okay? Never, never sell all 5 products for half price for no reason. Okay? So that brings us to the end of topic number 2, and I'll see you again in just a moment for topic number 3. And thank you for the questions so far. I'm looking forward to answering those at the end for you. Fantastic. Okay, let's move on to the third and final topic of today's conversation. Avoid making early mistakes. Okay, first one, signing clients that do not suit your business. Okay, now what we always want to do is make sure that we build our business again. What's been the salient message throughout this webinar: build a business for the long term. Okay, if you have a client early on that doesn't suit your business and you did it just to get, say, a couple of £100 a month, eventually this is going to go south. Okay, now it's not to say that the client is necessarily a problem client, okay, or being problematic in any specific way. It could just mean that they don't really suit your business. Okay, let's say that you offer paid advertising, you've taken on a client in an industry that you're unfamiliar with and it's not really working out. You did it just to get a bit of money through the doors, through the business, but it hasn't worked out the way you intended. Just let it go. Let it go. Okay. So even if you do make the mistake of signing a client that doesn't necessarily suit your business, don't try and keep that client, because the relationship is only likely to go south. Okay. You need clients that are going to go north. All right. Signing clients that do not suit your business should be avoided in the first place. But if you have already realized, actually, okay, I did take on that client, potentially I was being overly eager with them and it's really not working out, just look for another client that is suitable for your business and let this one go. Okay. Because you don't want to get tangled up in the sort of working relationship where a client's very, very unhappy and they're questioning your ability. They could potentially leave negative reviews. It could be more harmful in the long term to keep a client that is only going to create problems going forward. Okay, so please don't sign clients that do not suit your business. Make sure that you're comfortable with the industry niche service offering that you're offering and for the amount of money that you're offering it for. Okay, ignoring cash flow. Now, believe it or not, as a business coach, I have seen businesses that haven't really paid attention to the income and outgoings of their business. Okay, they've just been seeing themselves earning a significant or a healthy sum of money, and they haven't really been watching what's been going out the other side. Okay, they've been spending, they've been enjoying it without realizing sometimes that their businesses can actually be running at a loss. And this is something that I do not want to happen. So please do not ignore your cash flow. Always make sure that you are bringing in more than is going out. All right. Agreeing to something you feel you're not capable of delivering. This one is self-explanatory, okay? If you agree to offer a service or a product that you are not capable of delivering, or your team are not capable of delivering, there's really only one outcome for this, and that is negative, okay? It is going to go sideways, because if somebody has purchased a product or service from you and you cannot deliver it, it's only a matter of time, okay? Until you either stress yourself out, end up, in feeling incapable because you can't deliver this product or service, but really you shouldn't have agreed to deliver it in the first place, and therefore, there shouldn't be an expectation on you to deliver said service or product, and you find yourself in a position where you begin to feel underconfident and potentially even incapable. Not necessarily because you are, because you absolutely won't be, but this particular product or service that you have agreed to deliver, you cannot deliver. Okay, so it's negative for you. And of course, self-explanatory, it will be negative for the client as well, because of course they're not going to get what they paid for. Okay, so let's avoid agreeing to do something that you're not capable of delivering. Now, these are all early mistakes that could be harmful to your business if they're not well taken care of, okay? Right from the beginning. When I say well taken care of, I mean let's avoid doing them, okay? Let's avoid signing clients that don't suit the business. Let's avoid ignoring cash flow, and let's avoid agreeing to do something that you feel you're not capable of delivering, okay? So that brings us to the end of today's webinar session. I'm going to do another brief pause, and please do feel free to ask any more questions you may have. And please, of course, feel free to jot down any notes on this last slide here before we get on to the recap and then the Q&A for today's session. Excellent. So let's move on to the recap then for today's session. Number one, you will do it all eventually, but take your time, okay? Build it slowly and it is more likely to last. Number two, make good decisions early on, okay? Do not make decisions that could be harmful to the future of your business. And finally, focus on the business that right clients will come, okay? So, as always, a massive thank you for attending today's webinar session. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. If you'd like to talk to a member of our team, you're more than welcome to head over to iob-business.com/talk. And on there, you can book a call at a time that suits you. Okay, so when you follow this link, you'll see a calendar just like this one that allows you to select the date and time that works best for you. I'm going to leave that up on screen whilst I go and grab the questions that I have from you today. So question number one, what's the biggest mistake to avoid early in business? Great question. Love it. Okay. Perhaps in my personal opinion, I mean, there are many, many possible answers to this, but if I really had to choose one, I would say, in my opinion, probably the most common mistake I see is signing the wrong clients to get a quick win. At the time, it can feel like, okay, I'm going to sign this client, I'm going to make a few hundred quid a month, okay, which is brilliant. But then you realize actually this is a problematic client. They don't work well with me, or they're very demanding, or it's a niche that we're not particularly comfortable with. And then you start to view it as a negative thing, and all of a sudden that income doesn't feel particularly worth it. Okay. Now it's an age-old cliche, but you should focus not on the money, but what you can do for people instead, and the money will then take care of itself. Okay. Focus on this as opposed to how much money you can make, especially in the early stages. Great question. Next question. Where do I begin with all the things I have to learn? Yeah, wonderful. Love it. Okay, so here's the honest answer for this one. One step at a time. All right, get an all-round understanding of a skill. Move on to the next. Start with what is most relevant, okay? Most likely, say your service offering, cash flow. Just begin to understand fundamentals, right? Marketing, sales, finance, operations. Just study them, learn them, but the easiest way, in my view, to establish a good skill set with these is just pick one. So say you want to learn about marketing, just say pick Google Ads, for example. Study that until you're comfortable with it. You don't need to be an expert, just study it until you have a basic understanding and you could explain to somebody else. Okay, now I always feel like a good measure for this. Can you explain, if somebody asks you the question, what is that and how does it work? Could you explain to them confidently? Okay, once you get to that point, you're then comfortable with it. That's a very, very good test, in my view, for how to establish whether you have a good understanding of something or not. Can you explain it to someone else? Okay. So, do we have any more questions? It doesn't look like we do. Okay, wonderful. Well, as always, I wish you a wonderful Friday. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to join today's webinar presentation, and I very much look forward to seeing you again on the next iOB business webinar. Take care and bye for now.